Welcome to Athar's Garage. In this video, I'll be working on the Team Associated RC10 B74.2 Bag 2. So let's get started. Alright, so Bag 2 is going to be installing the ABCD blocks with the pills and the control arms. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get everything off the parts trees, trim them, that way we're ready to go. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare the hinge pins. I like to polish these up before I install them. So let's do that and then we'll have everything ready to install. So to polish them, I'm going to set the chassis aside for now. What I like to do is I like to use a drill and I like to use Neverdull. It polishes metal up nicely. All I gotta do is take a little piece of it. I bought this at the auto parts store. I think you can get it at Walmart as well, but I've used it a lot to polish other metals, so definitely worth this extra step in my opinion, because it does make the hinge pins extra smooth. So just lightly check up on it, and then as you rotate the drill, you just work the Neverdull up and down. And that feels extra smooth compared to how it felt before. So just gonna wipe it down with a microfiber towel in case there's any fibers left on there. Can definitely feel the difference. So I looked over Bag 2 and I saw that the front hinge pins are 47.5 millimeters long and the rear hinge pins are 49.5 millimeters long. So we know that the shorter hinge pins are going to be the fronts. So I can set that aside to the front. The front control arms are also slightly different. So the front control arms are going to have 2 holes. They're directional. This is the left one. So it's going to have 2 holes. And then the rear control arms, how you tell those apart is that it has this little ridge at the bottom. And we're actually going to be, that's going to be facing the rear. The 2 holes here are going to be facing the rear of the vehicle, and this is where we're going to install our shock. So that's how you tell them apart. So we know these are the fronts. We're going to need our A and B blocks. So these are very nicely machined, nicely anodized. I mean, they're beautiful. I've never had any issues with Associated aluminum parts. They've been around in the industry for a long time and they know what they're doing, so can't go wrong. All right, so first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get the B mount ready. We're gonna need our inserts, and the stock insert is the central dot insert. So on the parts tree, the central dots are right here. And then these are also central dots. So we can get these off. So looks like both the A and B blocks are going to be using the central blocks. So we can get those out. I highly recommend these flush cutters because they make a huge difference in the amount of trimming I need to do. There's almost like no trimming required after I get them off the parts tree. So you'll know how to install this by looking at the B block, and you'll see that this side has a little ridge, and on the other side there's no ridge. So we're going to install the pills with the hole facing out, like just like that. Okay, so there's the B block, and we'll set this aside for the A block. So we're going to install the B block in these two holes, just like so, and we're going to do that with the holes facing the front of the vehicle. So to do that, we're going to need 2 M3x8 flathead screws, and remember to check page 3 to make sure you have the correct length. Okay, so we have our 2 screws, and since it's going into aluminum, we're going to put some blue Loctite. So now we're going to install the control arms with the suspension arm shims that came off the parts tree. So it looks like the thinner shims go in the front. So let's go ahead and install our hinge pins. These are the shorter hinge pins. We're going to install our shims. And this is where it's going to get interesting, because according to Spencer Rifkin's video, the control arms were on his kit were tight on the hinge pin itself. So we'll see if I have that issue. And I do. It went in fairly easily for the most part, and then it got tight near the front. Let's try this side. Yeah. Yeah, I do feel some resistance. So I went ahead and ordered a 3.5 millimeter reamer. So I'm just gonna go ahead and run this through by hand. As you can see, it goes in pretty easily. So I guess there's no issues on that side. No materials coming out. So check the right side. And yeah, you can feel that it's a little tight. So I can feel that each one is about the same. You know, it moves freely on both of them, and like how it fits is basically the same on each one. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue. Okay, so the control arms are directional. There's a R and an L indicating right side and left side. So just take note of that. Now we can install our A block and front bumper. So the way that the pills are going to insert on the side that says A. And these are the center dot inserts. They're going to install it in these two holes here. And we're going to need 2 M3x8 flathead screws. And since it's going to be going into aluminum, we're going to install some blue Loctite on there. I can already tell you there's an issue. It's too tight. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these screws back out, take these shims out, measure them, and then try to take maybe 0.1 or 0.2 millimeters off and see if we can get these to move and rotate freely. Okay, these are measuring 1 millimeters. So let's take off a little bit of material on both of them. And I'm just gonna use, you can use just like some sandpaper. I'm just gonna use a nail file. So I took 0.1 off of that one and do the same with this one. Put one off on that one as well. So we can go ahead and try to reinstall and see if it's freed up a bit. I don't want to take too much off and it be really loose and have a lot of play. So I'm going to take a little bit off, try it. If it doesn't work, take a little bit off, try it again. So still a little tight. These should just be flopping down really easily. So I'm going to go ahead and take off another 0.1 millimeter. All right, and that's what you want. You want free movement where the control arms don't see a lot of friction, and I mean there's a little bit of back and forth play that I can feel. A lot better than B6.3 that I have. Not too much movement. And it looks like it falls pretty evenly. So it's kind of what we want. Perfect. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and take these screws out, reapply some blue Loctite, and then we can continue. So the front is done. Now we can install our front bumper. So the front bumper is going to be this piece here. There's a little bit of trimming needed, and we're going to install it using a M3x6 button head screw. And it doesn't say to use blue Loctite, but it is going into this aluminum A block. So we're going to add some blue Loctite so it doesn't back out. I'm not going to tighten it down too much since it is holding this plastic piece. You don't want to crack the plastic, so there we go. Now we can move on to the rear C-mount. So grab our C-mount, it's labeled like so. And we're going to need the 1 dot. So it looks like we're just going to use the one with the dot on the side, not in the corner. It's kind of odd that they show you that. So let me show you what it says on in the manual. So it shows in the manual to use a 1 dot like this and there's no pill that is like that. So there's pills with the 1 and the dot in the corner. We don't want to use those. We're going to use these that have the 1 and the dot is on the side. So we're going to get 2 of those. So we're going to install it with the dot facing the outside. So where it says C, we're going to install it on that side. And then I have the dot facing the outside. So you can see here that my dot is facing over here. And when I install the other side, it'll be facing the outside as well. So that's how it's going to look. The hole facing the outside and the dots facing the outside. So the C block is going to install in these 2 holes using M3x8 flathead screws. And since it's going to be going into aluminum, we're going to use some blue Loctite. All right, so the C block is in. Actually, before we install the control arms, I'm going to go ahead and install the set screws in the control arm that correspond to where the shock is going to mount on the bottom side. So we need 2 M3x20mm set screws. We got 2 of those. And then we're going to go ahead and install using a 1.5mm hex driver. And we need to leave 11mm exposed. We're right at 11. Let's go ahead and do the other one. So the set screws are going to face the front of the vehicle. We have our hinge pins. So go ahead and insert the hinge pins, and these are nice and smooth. We're going to put our shim, the thicker shim that was in that bag, on the front of the control arm, like so. And then our D block, we're going to be using the center dot insert, so we can get 2 of those. So we insert our pills on the side that has the letter D. So this is going to install with the D facing the front of the vehicle. And we're going to install the D block using 2 M3x8 flathead screws. And since it is going into aluminum, we're going to add some blue Loctite to those screws. Okay. I feel like one side is a little stiffer than the other. You can kind of see that these don't quite fall as evenly. So I'm gonna have to take it apart and sand down the shims a little bit so there's a little bit more free movement. And be patient when you're building your cars, because you know this can happen, and it all just depends on the molds and luck of the draw, whether it fits or not, because the tolerances can be different from car to car. But definitely take the extra step to ensure that everything moves nice and free, because that's actually going to play a huge part in how your car is going to handle. And a car that's set up, or a car that has suspension that is free moving, is going to be more predictable to drive. So these shims are 2 millimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and just take off 0.1 millimeter off each side. So I actually ended up sanding a little bit on both sides of the washer or the shim, because I wanted to make sure that if there's any sharp edges or little burrs, that they don't cause any binding. Just a little tip. So let's try this again. Oh yeah, much better. I can definitely feel that there's the same amount of looseness on both sides, and that's even. So definitely want that. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and just do this one side. I think it just needs a little bit more trimmed on, or that washer or shim just to be a little bit thinner, just to have the same amount on both sides. So just this one side needs it. So they definitely have about the same amount of play front and back, and they're nice and smooth on both sides, and that's exactly what we want. So, all right, so that concludes bag 2. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it helpful. To recap, I had to ream the front control arms with a 3.5 millimeter reamer. And I was just patient, ream it, check it, ream it, check it, make sure it's even fit on both sides, that it rotates freely on the hinge pins. And then I had to take off about 0.2 millimeters off the shim in the front. And then I had to take off on the rear 0.1 millimeter off the shim, just to get a little bit of movement front to back on the car. And then because of that, it now rotates freely and it doesn't bind up. So take note of that. You may or may not have to do that on your car, but I'll put a link in the description below where you can get the reamer. The cheapest one I found was off of Amazon. I think it was like $8. So I'll put a link for that below, and some of the other supplies that I use, especially this flush cutter. Like, it is really nice, and it's helping me not have to trim as much after I take it off the parts tree. So anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe if you did. If you had any issues with your vehicle, I'd love to hear about it and how you resolved it. So please leave some comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one where I tackle bag 3, the differentials.